The SRO GT Cup is a challenge for GT4 cars, the first year in existence, and it's the third round of the championship here at the Beijing street circuit, where we are about to kick off a qualifying session to set the grid for both of our Sunday races. It's cold, just 15 degrees track temperature and a decreasing air temperature down to 10 degrees, meaning getting higher temperature and even temperature into your own bodies is a little bit of a challenge for our drivers heading out onto this circuit set in the south of Beijing around E-Town. It's 4.9 kilometers in length and fast. The intermediate 2 around the center of E-Town and then out around the Tongming Lake Park, a wetland preserve. Apex Track Design have done a sterling job of getting this place beautifully laid out. And you can imagine that this area is just going to continue to grow over the next couple of years. We are already announced to be coming back in 2026. And it is going to be a street circuit that is going to provide entertainment, overtaking opportunities and challenges for our GT4 drivers. Qualifying starts in just a couple of moments' time. It's just a single session in our SRO GT Cup, but we do still have the traditional 2-race format for GT Cup, and therefore the fastest lap time sets pole position for race 1, and the second fastest lap time sets the qualifying grid for race 2. Now, we aren't going to be able to show you the second best qualifying time, I imagine. So we are going to know qualifying for race 1, and we're going to have that grid, but the second qualifying time's a little bit more trickier to extract. Coming into this weekend, we've had 4 rounds already at the Shanghai International Circuit and at Pintang. And Han Li Chao, the Toyota Gazoo Racing China driver, has been the master with 3 wins to his name. It was a win for Chen Weian in Shanghai Race 1, but the Winner Harmony driver and owner did not take part in Pintang and is not on the entry list here. So Moritz Berenberg is the next challenger in the championship, and he was the master around the streets this morning in our pre-qualifying session. He's in that 927, which sits at the front of the queue on the exit of turn 1, driving for WNS Motorsport, which is a German GT4 team, and run under the Maxmore banner, which is his company, based down in Zhuhai and Hong Kong. As you would expect for a fully Chinese championship, we are pretty much Chinese Taipei and Chinese drivers across the board. Just Moritz driving under a German license. We've got Jonathan Harris driving under a Chinese license, although has English heritage. And we have the Liu brothers, who have a English father. But in this particular championship, racing under their fully Chinese names of Lu Wenlong and Lu Wenhu. They're both in Lotuses. And we would expect to see Lu Wenlong, otherwise known as Daniel Lu in GT World Challenge Asia, as one of the challengers at the front of the field. He did not do the opening weekend of the season. Sorry, he did do the opening weekend of the season in Shanghai, but didn't partake in Pintang. And it it was his brother who we did not see in either previous round, but his brother now takes up the second seat in the Pegasus run Lotus Emira, and the third seat is occupied by Jonathan Harris. Darrell O'Young confirming to me that he will be running in the Greater Bay Arena GT Cup, which is the last weekend of SRO GT Cup in Macau. So the final round, just a single race there in Macau. So the championship could be wrapped up if Han Li Chao has 25 points advantage over the rest of the field post this weekend. He has a 45-point advantage at the moment over Moritz Berenberg, so it would have to be a very, very bad weekend for the number 33 Toyota Supra if he was not to complete the championship before the weekend is up. And with the chaos of Macau, and knowing that probably we're going to see a lot more entries in the Macau race as well, it possibly would be worth him trying to get that done tomorrow rather than waiting to Macau. Toyotas, the Supra, a very good bit of kit. There is one going through the shop now. Toyota Team Gazoo Team China running the cars. 3 cars. They're effectively semi-works entries with Wang Hao and Han Li Chao as the 2 silver drivers in those cars. There is also Yu Rao, who is in the number 7, and that is an AM entered car. But there is our championship leader, number 33. Round turn 1, and starting his first lap down the Yinghoi West Road, sorry, I should say, which runs adjacent to the Tongming Lake. And then into the braking zone at turn number 3. Braking and turning at the same time, although Hang tries to keep that as straight as possible. Onto Kiga Road just for a little bit, and then you turn left onto Jinghai Jewel Road, which is another dual carriageway 4-lane road, before cutting back across, turning left once again onto a narrower section, which is going again on Jinghui West, but going the opposite direction. And then you turn right onto Kigo Street once more. And back onto 4 lanes of width. 20 meters in total. Swing left through turn number 8, very fast left-hander. And onto Tonghui Main Road. And then into this tricky chicane. Get the car really slowed up because it is tighter on the exit than it is on the entry, and quite deceiving. Traction really, really important. Down towards turn number 12, where you turn left onto a narrower section of circuit. Initially it's wide on the exit there, but then it narrows because the pit lane is part of the dual carriageway, and the racetrack is only effectively half the width that they have experienced elsewhere. Then it widens again on pit exit, so you then have a very, very wide turn number 1. A little bit of a slide there from Han Li Chao through turn number 1. That's going to hurt his straight line speed all the way down towards the braking zone at turn number 3. They didn't really show their hands, the Toyotas. Now, braking in a straight line, you see you've followed that white line, and you've really got to be careful on street circuits like this not to get drawn into the white lines, not to follow them, because it's so easy to follow a white line and pay attention to it, but particularly going into turn number 3 there, you want to be turning and braking just a little bit. If you can get that rotation going, it will help you a lot, and it is easier for sure in a GT3 car than it is in a GT4 car to turn and brake at the same time. but you will get a better lap time if you can. If you can have the rear end of the car settled enough to be able to do it. Little bit of elevation change as they dive downhill towards turn number 8. Using all the road as much as possible. That's where you're going to be able to make up a lot of time as everything comes up to temperature. Nicely done through the chicane that time. Slow in, fast out is the idea there. And his first lap time still standing, as everybody else now has set a lap time. I say everybody else, we're still waiting for Jonathan Harris to set a lap time, so he must have come into the pits and then gone back out again. But we have all 13 cars, so the problems for the number 20. Oh no, we don't have the number 20. So I was about to say the problems for the number 20 must have been resolved, but they haven't been. And we do not have Daniel Lu Wenlong in qualifying. Just the two Amiras then out on circuit, and probably one of the main challenges for the head of the field will either be starting from the back of the grid or not starting at all, depending on what the issue is for his Lotus Amira. Brother Wenhu and Jonathan Harris in the two remaining Lotuses down in 12th and 13th position right now. The grunt of the Mercedes comes towards the line. That is the 555 silver driver of Zhou Lijuan. And one would expect to see those silver cars as silver entries at the top of the timing screens. Remember, they need to do 2 fast laps, setting the grid for race 1 and for race 2. We'll be monitoring on that left-hand side the fastest lap time. I suppose we could potentially come the end of the session be able to check in as to what was the second fastest lap time, as Moritz Berenberg does exactly what he was doing in the practice sessions that we saw earlier on, going a lot faster than everybody else. Oh, we've got a car in the wall. Do you know what? That's the first time we've seen a car in the wall all weekend long, and that is heavy damage for Xia Wengjung. He looks as though he's off the circuit because he's on old tarmac there. So I wonder where or how he has lost that. It could be turn 1. It is at turn 1. So not too far away from the garages, which are just to the left, the right-hand side there, but there's the skid mark. And has he just gone straight on? Looks like he's locked the right front, and you can see the skid mark. Ah, no, look at that, right in the middle of the shot. He's hit the wall on the inside, and that has then probably broken the steering and sent him into the wall on the outside. And I wonder whether he has hit the inside wall because of those bumps. There are 2 really nasty bumps into the braking zone into turn number 1. GT3 drivers saying that you kind of forget that they're there. You feel them, but you don't need to worry about them too much. But in GT4 cars, where you don't have that downforce, where you're relying upon the tyres to do the gripping far more than you are in a GT3 car, and especially in the early running of a qualifying session, it will be super easy to make an error. Now the tracking, which is an approximation, I know, suggests he's moving. He isn't moving, but it's great to see that he, as a driver, is out of the car. And he'll just be really disappointed to see the front end of that Porsche. Look, let's have a look then. So yeah, he's already hit. Oh, and that's fast into that wall. Wow. 3 layers of tyres should have done the trick to prevent the biggest of damage, and certainly has protected the driver. But he did not really slow down very much, did he? Weirdly, even on that shot, we saw that the right front wheel was still rotating, so he wasn't braking. I wonder whether that is therefore a brake issue. I wouldn't have thought the brake would have a... He's hit the wall for sure, but look, all the wheels are still rolling there, and he really isn't slowing down. So, unless he's already ripped the brake cable or brake line off that front left tyre with the contact with the wall, and then therefore the brakes have stopped working because of that. Either way, the 610 racing machine, there is the contact with the wall, as I was mentioning. Could have been the lightest of glances, couldn't it? But from there, you can see the line. So it is the left front that's done the locking, not the right front. And so it's locked up, or it's not facing the right direction any longer. And that's sent him into the wall. So the race control actually having a look at that barrier. And I'm afraid to say, I think that that wall has moved. Everything brand new here. Every single wall, every single catch fence, shiny, shiny. Oh, we found another angle. Well done, guys. And I wonder whether he... Yeah, for me, that's a brake issue. He hasn't really slowed down at all, and he's gone to the inside of that other car at unabated speed. I don't know why he would... I suppose if you tag the wall on the left-hand side, you're going to perhaps slow down a little bit. It breaks the... It could have been a very sensible thing to do. It breaks the wheel, and that would have put the wheel at a funny angle, as we saw. So that at least that was slowing the car down a little bit before the contact with the wall. What you would not want to do is not hit anything and then go straight on, because there is some tyre stacks protecting that big road. Once again, let's have a look. He's not slowing down one bit. A little bit of retardation. It's either he gets put off by that other car there, or he's had a brake issue. Tags the wall on the left-hand side. That breaks the suspension, and he's then hit the wall. I don't know. They would have seen those tyre stacks on the right-hand side there of that shot. They will know how many tyre stacks are there. 3 are protecting the wall on the left-hand side. Maybe 4 are protecting them on the right. And behind that tyre stack is the paddock for these GT4 cars. So it's not far for him to be taken back to his garage. And we've got, haven't got 24 hours, but we've probably got about 18 hours before we go racing. But I fear there might be quite a bit of damage, unfortunately, to the 007 Xia Wengjun, causing the first contact with car to wall that has caused a stoppage. We saw a couple of the GT3 cars skimming the wall during the qualifying session, but that's the first proper contact. And the tyre barriers doing absolutely the job that they are designed to do. Just the alone wind turbine there in the centre of shot. Usually you see lots of them together, but one's a little bit lonely. Now they are getting the car on the flatbed. But I wonder whether there's work to be done on the tyre stack as well, and the concrete wall. These concrete walls, by the way, are designed to move. If you have a heavy contact with these big GT3, GT4 machines, you wouldn't want the concrete wall to not move. Even if it has 3 layers of tyres, it's better that it shimmies back to absorb a little bit of the impact. And because they're all joined together, they won't move that far, but they are designed to move a little bit. That's why you should never stand and be right close to a concrete wall on a street circuit. So timer stops in the qualifying session because we are under a full, proper qualifying session. If it was a practice session, the timer would continue. But as we're in an official session, it stops. All cars are lined up in pit lane. So the teams do have an opportunity to get from turn 1 up to pit lane to move some of their kit. And any little tweaks that the teams may want to do after a couple of laps, they probably didn't have enough of an opportunity to feel how good or bad their cars were because they were getting up to temperature. But there could be an opportunity to change. They're not under parc fermé conditions, so they can do what they like. Well, I didn't realise we had Jimmy Jibs. Those are the two cranes in the middle of the shot there, for those of you wondering what I'm talking about. Such is the weight. It looks as though we've got a couple of drivers taking the opportunity to sit outside of their cars. I think I'd stay in mine, such as the 10 degrees outside temperature. It'd be nice and cozy inside your car. That is car number 16. So that is Zhang Huilin. Nice and shiny. Did I say it was a Mercedes? It is a Mercedes. It is a Mercedes? No, it's an Audi. What am I talking about? It's definitely an Audi. A little bit of feedback going on. There we go. Yes, the 4 rings give it away on the front bonnet. That's actually the car that the Harmony Racing team owner raced in Shanghai as a support race to the Formula 1. And finding himself an amateur driver to take part in. It's a good advert, isn't it? If you've got your own race team, to get inside that, into a car and to show how good the car can be, and then attract the attention of paying customers to then take it for the rest of the season, which has successfully worked for Chen Weian. Good turnout around the circuit of fans who may want to add well, they don't seem that bothered by the temperature. I was about to say may want to add an extra layer, but it's okay for everybody other than the Australians in the pit lane and myself. Some Australians out there still with shorts on in the pit garages. There's Xiao Meng. He was quite fast actually in the pre-qualifying session earlier on. Also in an Audi. As I was mentioning earlier, these GT4 cars far closer related to the road spec machines that they are named after versus the GT3 cars these days. And you look at the Ferrari GT3 car, the 296, that is one of the more recent machines, and it's really a bespoke built machine that actually built by Orica, the French chassis manufacturer, rather than built by Ferrari themselves. But Audi Sport developed this GT4 car. Gosh, it must be 5-6 years ago now. Sadly, coming to the end of its life. That is our race director for the weekend. And you can see that the barrier has definitely moved. So you've got the two front stacks are in the right place, but then there's a gap between the first two and the third, which are actually there's 4 stacks, isn't there? And the 4th stack is strapped to the concrete barrier, and that's what's moved. And the conveyor belt material has split as well. So this could be a lengthy wait. What's the local time at the moment? The wetland park of Tongming Lake. with the canal. That's actually right in the middle there is a canal that runs further into the city. On the left and the right-hand side of it is the lakes, but there is moving canal water in the middle of it, which then feeds another canal which runs along the side of the main straight. Outside of GT3 and GT4 racing this weekend, plenty of customer activities and entertainment from stunt cars. Obviously, this is year one, first time this street circuit has existed. And so far, here are the highlights. Just 2 laps completed by our cars, with Moritz Berenberg actually not completing his lap. So he was on a mega lap, way faster than the fastest lap time had been so far. But the red flag fell before he was able to finish it. So it is this Toyota Supra of Han Lin Chao that is fastest at the moment with a 1:59.0. There is what has caused our red flag, a very fast shunt for Xia Wenjun. The car is cleared, but it is now the concern around the tyre barrier and the concrete wall behind it that may need to be moved and in parts replaced before we can safely put cars back out onto circuit with just shy of 17 minutes remaining. Now, the slight issue is that they do need to do 2 fast laps to call this a qualifying session, because we need both, we need qualifying 1 set by the fastest lap time and then qualifying 2 set by the second fastest lap time, and nobody's done 2 full laps yet, so they couldn't establish a grid for the second race, and they can't call it now. So we are going to be sitting and waiting a little bit. There is that canal, as I mentioned, the track going over the canal. That is the join. So we were talking a little bit earlier on about the 2 big bumps that are in the braking zone into turn 1. Whether it's by luck or design, it's really added an extra bit of complexity to the circuit. And it is the join where the bridge joins the mainland, with the canal going underneath. Of course, when you're on a closer shot of watching the cars going around turn 1, you don't notice that you're actually going over a bridge. But there is 2 bridges, I think, because I'm sure there's another one at the exit of turn 12, where we also have a join in the road, and those joins are because of the canal underneath. Now, ladies and gentlemen, how many racetracks have bridges crossing water in them? I can't think of very many, but I can think of a Formula E track in China that raced along a bridge. And I'm sure there are plenty of racetracks that have bridges and crossing over waterways, but not many with joins in tarmac. Actually, isn't there? There was one, the Valencian Formula 1 circuit, I think, went over a bridge that opened, a drawbridge. I don't know if it was actually drawn, but yes, the Valencian street circuit is a good shout. Well done, Brain. And trying to think of any others. Singapore, maybe? Don't think Singapore does have an element of bridge. Or does it? Maybe it does as well. Answers on a postcard. Other racetracks that have bridges, of course, would include Suzuka, last round of the IGTC, the return of the 1,000 kilometers, of course, because it crosses over each other. Not many racetracks cross over each other in the world of racing tracks generally. Oh, there's a good Lithuanian track. There's an aside that hosts a 1,000-kilometer race for GT3 cars, and that is raced on a motorway, where you go down one end of the motorway, you go you cross from one lane to the other to come back on you. And then you go off the motorway and over a bridge to get back onto the other side of the motorway. Amazing racetrack. But that also has a bridge in it. But that's a different bridge because it has a race. It doesn't have a racetrack underneath it, but it does have a road going underneath it, which would also exist in various other forms of racetrack. So, yeah, lots of different bridges. What is the? There is a. Is that not a driver crawling on the? There's Peter, race director on the left-hand side. I thought I saw a driver in race boots jumping over the right-hand side. Whether he's looking for a part of his car that is now under a tyre barrier. Here are the Toyota Gazoo Racing China cars. Of course, they've been redesigned to follow the Toyota Gazoo Racing colours, whether it be the colours of the World Rally team or the WEC team or GT4 cars. They all basically, if they want to be Toyota Gazoo Racing, have to feature the same livery. And so they've gone from that red and white livery to the red and black livery that we now see. Japan Cup, we had GT4 cars in that. Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia entered just a single GT4 car. Oh, we might be getting an interview. That's exciting. Feline is with us this weekend.
I think when you say broken 4 times.
A chat down at the what used to be R&B but is now Origin. They've got some work to do down there. Let's go down to our championship leader. Han Li Chao is with Feline.
韩立潮呢，现在突然遇到了红旗的情况，在这个排位赛当中。不过看到你的目前做的成绩还是不错的。第一次来到这条街道赛，感觉如何呢？
这条街道赛其实挑战性还是挺大的，而且，在亦庄的这个通明湖，它其实围着这个湖来建造的，然后整个的地面抓地力，其实比会变得越来越好。 但是天气的原因，可能温度很低，所以我们需要不停的去推进，然后可能像 GT3一样，他们圈速基本上都是在最后才出来的，所以这一场红旗也是打乱了这个排位赛整体的一个节奏。而且这个周末我们的车的 BOP 并不是非常的好，所以可以看到我们整个的尾速是比较低的，所以。 我们在不停地优化自己的车，然后我也优化自己去push 极限。
So I just asked Han Li Chao and about how do you think about this racetrack? He said that this racetrack is very interesting to drive with, but because it's around the lake, so the temperature is very difficult to bring it up, and also this red flag gonna affect the how this performance for the qualifying result. But so far he's happy with what he got now. Also he said the BOP this race weekend is not very fond of them, but they try his best. Also, try as a driver improve his performance on this racetrack. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Feline. Yeah, look at those tyres. Those poor Pirelli tyres are sitting there, getting colder and colder and colder, and there's nothing that any of the drivers can do about it. And so it'll take a decent chunk of time to get them back up to temperature with a shortened session. Effectively, really, we haven't had a session because the first 2 laps will be slow anyway. So we can kind of ignore those laps, and now we'll have a session of 17 minutes or less, which means they will really have to work those tyres as much as possible. I think that the person down there alongside the race director is Wenjun Xia, who was the driver that crashed. And I think he's looking for, because his overalls look similar, or maybe it's not. Maybe I'm making things up. Maybe it's the safety car driver instead, because he's got his race overalls on and he's got his race boots on. Oh, there's Jonathan Harris with Is that Jonathan Harris? Yes, definitely English flag on his helmet. And English, dare I say, English-looking dad, with the flat cap that would be very suitable for the revival or something like that. Let's go back down to the man who's been the fastest man around this circuit quite convincingly, Moritz.
Hey, Morris, and so far you're still leading the AM class, and also it's the first time for you to race on this street circuit. And
I guess everyone's the first time here.
yeah, so how do you think this racetrack?
I think this racetrack is really fun. It's really a high-speed track. Of course, it's a lot of similar corners, but it's still challenging to be fast here because the walls are still really close if you want to be fast. So it's fun and good preparation for Macau.
Also, a lot of drivers mentioned about the grip of this racetrack, and since the temperature now is very low, and also it's red flag now, how this is going to affect? Because so far you only did P7 so far for the qualifying section.
Yes, because I was still under my warm-up preparation. Just before I wanted to start my first push lap, then the red flag came out, so I could not have any push lap yet. So yeah, I hope soon will be green again, and then I can push and get a better position.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, you see, they'll have this process, these drivers, that they'll have a plan that they need to go through. For instance, we don't have many curbs around here, but if you are to do a similar warm-up process on a normal conventional circuit, you have to stay away from the curbs on the first couple of laps, because if you run a curb with a low pressure tire, and the tires will start with lower pressures than you want them to operate in, because as the heat generates, the pressure augments, gets higher. So if you run a tire over a curb with a low pressure, you damage the sidewalls, and that then can lead to a puncture later on. So in preparation, you want to get the tire up to temperature without running curbs, and once it's up to pressure related to temperature, then you can start pushing. So that was what Morris was preparing, but hadn't got to the push bit yet. Let's go back down to the pits. And Feline is tidying up with more drivers.
哎 ，Jackie， 那现在是一个红旗的情况下，你目前来讲跑对自己的，目前我看现在是 P2， 对自己有没有做出一个飞行圈？目前对自己的成绩还满意吗？
其实目前都还没有办法做飞行圈，因为地面温度很低，所以胎温上的非常的慢。那其实温度刚好已经慢慢上来，然后就出现红旗，所以其实大家都没办法做到单圈。
你对这条赛道感觉怎么样？因为所有人都是第一次驾驶，你觉得这条赛道感觉如何？
我觉得这很不错啊，我觉得应该继续办下去。这个它很宽，然后速度非常快，所以是一个蛮刺激的一个赛道。
I just asked Jackie about this racetrack, and he said actually for everyone and the tire temperature just start to warm up, and they haven't started doing a flying lap, and suddenly it's a red flag. Actually, it's not good for any of the driver. But he said that this is a very fun racetrack to drive, and with a lot of high-speed corners. Also, the racetrack is quite wide, so he hopes the race can continue for next year.
I think that feeling is felt around the paddock. There is a lot of optimism and positivity around the circuit, around the facilities, and we are just close to getting that last bit of barrier back in position, and then we can get going again. Of course, the issue with the barriers that are put on corners, as you can see right there, is they're a lot shorter than barriers that dictate the straights, and so they move a lot easier because there's a lot more flexibility in them. And every single corner, as you can see, as we flick around the circuit, has those, what would you say, 1 meter wide, which means they could be easily touched. Compare that, for instance, to old school barrier laying, like Bathurst 1000, for instance. Guess what I watched last weekend? And you have these joins where you have right angles between two big joins, and those then cause an issue for tapping them and breaking them. So you try to avoid that.
So Stanley， 那个蒙巧，那么你是第2次来参与到这个 SRO GT 杯的比赛，就来到了这个街道赛，整个感觉如何呢？对这条街道赛的感受？
对亦庄的这个街道赛，我觉得是蛮惊讶的。毕竟这个政府是在1个月前，然后就能够做这样子这么充足的准备，然后整个街道赛的路的平坦的状况跟这整个环湖的这个景色非常的优美。
那么你觉得这条赛道哪里有比较有难度的点呢？
其实因为现在就是现在的气温跟地面的温度比较低，很难能够让这个轮胎能够保持的相对的工作温度，所以基本上每个弯都非常的有挑战性。当然我跑这个比赛的终极目标是11月要去参加澳门大赛，那我认为这里的难度跟精彩的程度不亚于澳门大赛。
谢谢。I just asked Stanley how does he think about this track, and he said it's a very beautiful racetrack. Also, he was amazed how this government could prepare this within a month, and also the track condition is pretty good. But the challenge is racetrack the temperature, because of the temperature is very low, so it's tire temperature is very difficult to get warm. And but his goal is to go to Macau. He said this racetrack actually is as exciting as go to Macau. Thank you.
Well, there is praise. Stanley Yang, or Yang Mengqiao, comparing this favourably to Macau. Does remind me, actually, of those first couple of turns around Macau. That width that you have around the Mandarin. But obviously in Macau, you then head up onto the mountain section, and it gets very, very narrow. And we go here, we just stay wide and flat around the lake. Actually, that has a bridge as well, Macau, because it has to cross into the ferry port, I think. Maybe not. Fisherman's, I think, is where the bridge is. And that is where, Tenuous Link, that's where they're going next. We're going to go back down to Feline, and she's moving forward. So let's find out who she's got next.
Hey Nathan, this is your first time to race on this street circuit. How do you feel about this racetrack?
It's definitely an interesting track with such long straights and a very tight chicane, but should make for some good racing, some good overtaking opportunities.
Oh, so you mentioned about the overtaking opportunity. What do you see for overtake?
If you get a good exit and you get a good run down one of these long straights, you definitely have a chance to put your car on the inside and stick the overtake.
What will be your approach if when the race restart?
Well, right now, just want to get a good clean lap in for qualifying, set myself up for tomorrow. Hopefully I can start up high up in the field, so I won't get caught in any messes towards the back. But yeah, hoping for a good result.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Nathan Lu Wenhu, brother to Daniel Lu Wenlong, who isn't in this session. He's on the entry list, but his Lotus Emira not working correctly, and so isn't partaking in the session. So if we get to see Daniel Lu, who's also in GT World Challenge Asia, then he will be at the tail of the field. Nathan Lu hoping to be at the front of the field, and didn't get a lap time in at all. Because he came into the pits after just the single lap and then went back out again. So Nathan, or Lu Wenhu, who's on the entry list as his full Chinese name, the younger brother of Daniel, and both of them racing in Porsche Carrera Cup Asia back in 2021. And then Nathan went on to do some touring car front-wheel drive stuff, whereas Daniel stayed in rear-wheel drive GTs until they both ended up going to university. And a few years away from motorsport, but coming back into it again. There there is the wetlands and the canal down the centre with, I think that direction, Beijing centre in the distance. About a 45-minute to an hour taxi drive into the very centre. About a 45-minute to an hour taxi drive to the Daxing airport, which is the southern airport. And about an hour up to the main international airport. Let's go down to Lenny Tian this time, who Feline is talking to.
田委员也非常欢迎你重新回到我们的赛事当中。那么在这个经过几圈的练习和今天的排位赛，感觉这条赛道如何呢？
从一开始，因为今年是我第1年比赛，然后也是我第1次的街道赛，所以越跑越有信心吧。然后也是成绩还是预排位的时候排第3，感觉还是不错的。对。
非常的感谢。I just asked 田委员 about his experience, and he said it's his first year racing and also first straight race, and his qualifying result is P3, so he's pretty happy with the result, and he can feel he's getting better and better. Thank you.
And he's got as cool a helmet as he has livery on the car. Oh, it's a tiger. I was trying to work out what it was earlier on. That is absolutely epic. Always great to have big characters. We had Tiger Wu. look at the chin strap of that. Brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. Tiger Wu in the Japan Cup with a very crazy livery. You see quite a lot of crazy liveries in Japan. And actually, to be fair, in China as well. And a big old tiger on the side of his Cayman. And then various scratches all the way around it in a dark red. So from our wide cameras, we don't get a chance to fully appreciate it. But if we did a race in the dark, well, actually, a race in the dark wouldn't work at all. But we need a sunnier day than the greyness that is rolled over. Started off the day blue, but the clouds came in, unfortunately, and that has prevented the track from getting any warmer than it's 21 degrees in the sun, but 15 degrees in the greyness. It was 11 degrees yesterday when these guys were out on circuit, basically the same as the air temperature. And the expectation is that it's going to stay similarly grey for tomorrow. And the timetable has just come out for tomorrow's racing, which has just been confirmed. So they will have a morning and an afternoon race. 11:30 is when the GT Cup Race 1 will be on local time.
周李源很高兴在 SRO GT 又看到你了。那么在跑这条你来到了你的家乡跑这一条街道赛，会不会有一点紧张呢？
因为这是第1次跑街道赛，所以真的是有点紧张，而且路面有点颠簸，这就加重了这个对控车的难度。但总的来说，赛道的难度不是特别高，所以就是会有挑战性，但是希望能取得好成绩吧。
那么这条赛道你觉得有哪些弯角来讲是比较有意思的，你比较喜欢的？
其实我觉得第3个弯就很有挑战性，因为它在刹车的时候会有一点看不到下一个弯的出弯，所以而且这条赛道还有个特点就是它很难去找这个刹车的参考物，因为两边都本来是街道嘛，所以而且从来没有人跑过这条崭新的赛道，所以每一圈其实都在不停地摸索。
非常感谢。I just asked Joe because he is also local here, and he is also his first SRO GT race, also his first straight race. He said that he had a lot of fun on this racetrack, and also especially, but this racetrack is a little bit bumpy for him. And also, he said that the turn 3 is especially fun because you couldn't see the exit of the racetrack. And I think this is same for everyone, but he just enjoying to be here. Thank you.
And it goes from wider to tighter through turn 3. You've got bumps there too. And a lot of the drivers mentioning that as their favourite. It really is a bit of a challenge. And interesting that the bumps are starting to appear. Of course, brand new tarmac, as I mentioned earlier, around the whole of this venue. FIA spec tarmac, FIA spec drain covers were dug out to replace the ones that were already here. And that was done a few weeks ago. You can see the join actually. Just to the right of this camera shot is where the the FIA spec tarmac finishes and the normal road tarmac starts, or what was here before, that got all ripped up and FIA spec tarmac was laid down. What that means completely, I can't tell you. But now we've got to change the conveyor belt at the front of the tyre stack. So let's go back to the pits.
张慧琳，那么现在呢，又有一个车冲出了赛道。那么早些时候，其实在练习赛的时候，你也发生了类似的情况，是不是这条赛道还是颇具挑战的呢？
对的，因为首先第一气温会比较低嘛，然后我们对轮胎跟刹车的温度可能还需要更一步的去理解，然后还有这个赛道，因为是一条全新的赛道，包括它的刹车点什么的，我们都还需要继续去尝试去突破、去实验这些之类的。
那么目前在对自己排位赛目前跑的情况满意吗？如果重启之后有什么样的一个规划呢？
重启之后，反正是尽量先把轮胎跟刹车再暖起来，因为我们刚刚进行了几圈暖胎圈，然后可能就下来了。下来了之后呢，现在因为气温也比较低嘛，然后可能温度又降下去了，然后因为所剩的时间也不多了，我们需要尽快的把轮胎暖起来，然后进行冲刺。
好，非常感谢。So I actually earlier in this morning's practice, and he also had a crash on the wall, and he said this track actually is very difficult to find the braking point, also where to push the car. Also the temperature is getting low now, and so later when the race restart, he has to really warm up the tire properly and try to get a good result for the qualifying. Thank you.
And I think the braking point issue is because it's so wide and there aren't that many references for you to work out where to brake. With lots of characteristics around the circuit, or indeed a standard race venue, you do end up with more references, whereas around here there is not so much. Not too bad around turns 3, 4, 5, 6, where you've got lots of buildings around you and things are rushing by, but around the lake area, where everything's pretty flat, it's more tricky. Still 17 minutes remaining of our qualifying session. We are under red flag conditions due to an incident for the 007 of Xia Wenjun, who either had a brake issue and crashed into this wall here, or he got distracted by the car in front of him, missed his braking zone and went into the wall. Let's go back down to Feline, who's going to pretty much cover the whole field by the end of this.
肖萌，那么你是第一次跑这个 GT4 的比赛，然后就来到了一条街道赛，感觉如何呢？
这我第一次开 GT4， 然后之前开过澳门的赛道，对这条赛道呢其实还 OK， 但是这个车的感觉我需要重新去找，所以这个需要一定时间。我觉得反正这次是在进步的一个过程。
那么你觉得奥迪的 GT4 在这条赛道上有哪些优势呢？
奥迪这台 GT4 呢，我觉得尾速相对来讲会比其他车要快一点，但是弯中的这个控制它需要更多的这个技巧。
好，非常的感谢。那么这条赛道你觉得哪个弯角会感觉比较有意思呢？
哪些弯角？其实这条赛道就比较考验车手的这个基本功，每次都是 stop go stop go， 但是在中间那个一个正方形的弯道的话，还是比较考验节奏，应该是在大概 T5 到 T8 之间吧，我觉得那个地方比较考验节奏，我也丢了不少时间。
非常的感谢。Actually, it's a first time for Xiaomeng to race on a GT4 car, and but it's also but he raced in Macau before, so for him as a street race here, and he feels less challenged as a racetrack. But he said for this car and especially T4, T5 to T8, and for his need a lot of skill from the driver to have a good performance, and he also lost a lot of time there, and he tried to catch up on that. Thank you.
Still so early for so many of these drivers to really get to know this circuit. Lap times were around 2 minutes when we were up to racing speed, just under 2 minutes, and therefore they are in their early explorations after a bit of track time yesterday. Peter Daly now becoming a generator engineer down there, the race director supervising the repair of the tyre stack. I think the idea is they're going to cover over the hole with an extra new element, and then at least that will be fully safe before we go back to green flag running. But we are starting to lose light. We did have a session yesterday for GT cars that finished at 5:45, but it was pretty much in the darkness, and of course the usual things of, oh, this place looks really cool in the dark, we should do a night race. Well, we might end up with a night qualifying session if things take too long. Certainly the sunset was beautiful yesterday evening, provided lots of mega photos for everybody to enjoy. And we may be in a similar situation. There's the sphere, the mini sphere. For those of you that know Las Vegas, that is Mercedes-AMG's version. It sits on top of their hospitality unit down there at turn number 3 and turn number 7, where the junction is. And loads of activation, really great to see all around the circuit, from Mercedes to Lotus to Toyota. There's a big festival area in just close to that area there on the inside of turn 7, so it's the outside of the circuit. Lots of food and different options of entertainment, because in the end this is a business area, so come the weekend there wouldn't be too many people around, and they'll be encouraging and trying to drag people down here, obviously, for today and tomorrow. Yesterday there was a few more people finishing off their working week. The AstraZeneca office next door to the hotel, the Holiday Inn Express, which is the lodgings for myself down there at the inside of turn 6, and a very, very comfortable hotel. Now, camera irises can play tricks on you, so I'm not totally sure how bright it is out there still, but there is our AMG sphere. Pretty cool. Adding a bit more character to the Tongming Lake and the big lake area to that inside. So underneath those trees there, you can't really see the paddock area because they're covered under trees, but that's where we are, where all of the GT3 cars and teams are, and the main grandstands, race control. That big tent you can see right in the middle of the shot, that's the press room. And then there's lots of little tents, which basically are offices, I think, for all of the different departments, whether it be the SRO founder, Stefan Rattel, who's here this weekend, various different guests, track organisation. And then if we went back to that shot, further to the left-hand side is where these guys have their garages on the GT4 paddock. Quite often we see that the GT4 paddock, for instance, at the Spa 24 Hours, is basically about a mile from the pit lane. It's right in the middle of the track. Zandvoort, for instance, that's the GT4 paddock, is on the outside of the circuit. The GT3 cars are on the inside of the circuit. It's quite often you find the support races end up with them with an area separate to where you would expect them to be. Looks like we might have a technical issue with our generator. So we continue to hold. Now I wonder where Dan Liu is. probably gone home. But obviously he should be in Lotus number 20. There's Jonathan Harris. I think Jonathan Harris is an ex-professional long-distance runner. It's been a bit tricky to find, you know, when you're doing research on some of these drivers, it's a little bit tricky to find people when they have sort of common names. And the man that were more familiar was Jonathan Harris as a runner rather than as a driver. Couldn't really find anything about Jonathan Harris as a driver, so we'll find out perhaps in a few moments when Feline is able to catch up with him. Maybe this is now.
Hey, Jonathan, nice to see you here. I know you also speak good Chinese.
Yeah.
So how do you want to do the interview? Chinese or English?
I think let's do it in Chinese.
Okay, 我们要做中文. We will do that in Chinese now. Okay. 那么Jonathan 为什么会参与到这个比赛当中呢？感觉这条赛道跑起来如何？
我觉得这条赛道跑起来很刺激嘛，因为离墙那么近，又开得那么快，我觉得就总体也是，就是感觉非常非常刺激。
那么其实你比赛其实没有在中国的赛场上经常会看到你，是不是？平时这个比赛为什么要参与到这个比赛当中呢？
因为我开的是 GT4 车嘛，也是就是给我搭建一个开始嘛。然后因为我还算比较小的了，这个上面我才18岁嘛，所以也是我这个赛事生涯的开始吧。
好的，好的。那么这条赛道你觉得哪些弯角会比较有意思呢？
我觉得那个后面那个 chicane 就是9、10、11号弯非常的有趣，然后就是8号弯那个非常快的一个盲弯就非常刺激。
非常的感谢。Okay, I just asked Jonathan. Actually, I'm amazed of his Chinese, and he said because he just 18 and he started driving these GT4 cars, and he's also very enjoying this track very much. And he said the chicane in turn in 9, 10, 11 is very interesting, especially also turn 8, which is a very fast corner and blind corner, and it's very exciting to drive there. And thank you very much, and hope you have a good result today. Yeah.
Definitely half Chinese, half English. That's what his helmet was showing. English flag on the left-hand side, Chinese flag on the right-hand side. A few more SRO officials down looking at the barrier repairs going on. And for the moment, the last part of it yet to be attached. But yeah, 18 years of age, Jonathan Harris. And in a 3-car Lotus team. Yeah, before we were going to that interview, I was saying, I wonder where Dan Liu is, because he was supposed to be in car 20, but that car with an issue. Obviously, Dan also driving in GT World Challenge for Team Absolute, who he won the Porsche Carrera Cup Asia Championship with. There's an Ayrton Senna helmet. Very, very nice. Very well replicated, even with the boss and the National logos on it. Love that, well done. At least that visor. Ah! Well done to Feline. She's found Dan Liu. Brilliant. Let's find out what happened.
Hey Daniel, so your car didn't join the qualifying section. So what happened to your car?
Yeah, I just had some small technical issues in pre-quali, which the team can't get resolved in time. As the schedule is pretty packed this weekend, also with today, so hopefully the team will work hard tonight, and I know they will, and hopefully we can get out tomorrow.
So, are you confident you can still racing tomorrow? Because we are looking forward to see it.
Yeah, for sure. Confident we can get on the grid. Just makes my job a little bit harder tomorrow, but as long as everything works out and follow the plan, in the end, I think we can still have a good result here.
Also, like this racetrack is new for everyone, and how do you feel about this racetrack?
Yeah, this track is really cool. I mean, having a street race in China, especially in Beijing, is probably, you know, one of the coolest tracks I've been to. I really enjoy street tracks as well because it really tests the limits of the drivers. But yeah, this track has been well built, and honestly, the crowd and everyone coming around to see it is just a good atmosphere here.
And I also think you are not just driving here alone, and you are here with your brother. Are you sharing data or talking about the race?
Yeah, I mean, my brother is in car 75 with the Lotus team, so definitely been teaching him and trying to tell him what to do, but you know, sometimes it's a bit difficult being brothers. So yeah, hopefully he can deliver a good result later on in qualifying, and we'll see.
So do you guys have competitions?
I mean, we can try to compete, but I would like to think I'm faster, you know. Obviously, he thinks he's faster as well, but I guess only the race will tell tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
We can try to compete, but I'm better. Brilliant, brilliant answer. Then Dan, obviously racing in GT3 in the Porsche and in the Lotus in GT4. Was going to say gives him an advantage because it gets more track time, but unfortunately, with an early retirement in practice yesterday and in the pre-qualifying this morning and not doing qualifying, I'm not sure how much extra track time he's going to be getting. And certainly with the GT4 being different to a GT3, it adds a challenge because he's got to take off his GT4 hat. And remember, he's in a GT3 car that drives very differently before switching back to the other way around. So is it a hindrance? Is it a help? That would be my question. More meetings going on down at the barrier repair. A fourth car has joined the party. We've got the Mercedes AMG safety cars this weekend, spectacularly liveried up. And we'll see them tomorrow. Oh, another one. Got a fifth car down there now. So the barriers and all the heavy lifting stuff was quite easily done, but it seems as though the last part is a bit more of a challenge. And so close is the cars getting to that wall on the main straight that the stickers are starting to come off, which is proof of how fast they're going and how close they are getting. We saw in GT3 a few tapping the tyre stacks, but nobody's hit the barriers quite as hard as 007, which has caused this red flag. Been some challenges for the track builders across the weekend already. Always is a challenge to put together a street circuit. When you come to a racetrack that's already been built, it's always a challenge to build a racetrack. Just talk to the guys at Mandalika about that. But once it's built and it's signed off and it's good, then the race series come to them, get going, and all is easy. But when you are building a racetrack, a street circuit, just for that weekend, it's a whole different ballgame. There is always a few things that need to be rolled out. Another nice helmet design. Now, visors was something I was going to bring up because that is a dark visor. You can sort of see through it a little bit that you're not going to see very much now that the light has died. And I wonder how many of our drivers have got clear visors up in pit lane, because they'll have them perhaps down in their helmet bags in the garage area, but their garage area is on the outside of turn 1. So that is also not very easy to get to, as that was where I came in a couple of days ago. You have to go over a bridge at turn 2 and then walk round. So it won't be a quick pop to the garage to go and get a clear visor. And those of them who have chosen the dark visor are going to struggle with the sunset. Now, I'm not sure many will be listening to me, but if they are, that might cue a mechanic or two to get themselves over. They'll have to go pretty much all the way round to turn number 2, over the bridge and then back towards turn number 1. I think it's about a 15-minute walk to do it. There's Stanley Yang, known on our entry list as Yang Men Chao from Chinese Taipei in his Motul-sponsored Aston Martin. He should be numbered 007. It is a good-looking car. You can drive one of those at the Abu Dhabi Formula 1 circuit. If you want a driving experience and you happen to be around the area, then it will only cost you £400 for 10 laps. And it is in a GT4 car, just like that one. Looks like progress is being made. There's a lot of people leaning on that barrier, so we are getting closer and closer to getting this session back underway. We've pretty much interviewed the whole field, including drivers that aren't in the session. In fact, I think we have. I think we've ticked off all of them. There is Nathan Liu, Daniel's younger brother. Decided to take his helmet off. I noticed he was doing that whilst we were interviewing Daniel. And so now he's got that really awkward thing where you're watching the screens to see what's going on, and then your face flicks on it, and you sort of don't know what to do because you're just looking at yourself, but in a 5-second delay. So most of the time, people just sort of stop and watch and sort of freeze, and they're not sure. Luckily, he's been distracted by lots of girls who want photos. And there are lots of fans. I noticed earlier on when we were had a little break between sessions. Lots of fans down in pit lane. And there we go. He said it. Nathan said, I can't look at the camera because I can't look at myself. It's weird. I shouldn't say that as a presenter, but it is kind of weird, especially when you're having a chat with somebody else. Trying to look, be natural, be natural. A lot of team members also, you'll find, whether it be in GT4 or GT3, a lot of team members will be speaking English and will be from Europe. Pegasus Racing, for instance, team leader from Germany. The cars obviously will be based out here, whether it be at the Zhuhai International Circuit. There's got a lot of storage there, or perhaps Shanghai. How many permanent racetracks are there in China? There's another question, which I would say 5 or 6 that are FIA grade licensed. Now, GT1s were supposed to race around a street circuit at the Bird's Nest back in 2011. Bird's Nest being the Olympic Stadium here in Beijing. But construction delays meant they ended up being placed at Golden Port, which was, or is, a race circuit on the outskirts of Beijing, which is 1.4 miles in length. Now, that's not very far. It's about just over 2 kilometers. The track record around the Golden Port circuit, set by a Formula BMW, is only just over 1 minute's worth of racing. It was a wet weekend in the end when the GT1 cars ended up there, and so they weren't able to take the lap record. But imagine GT1 cars being far more gruntier than GT4 and bigger and wider, and they were racing around effectively a go-kart track. And World Touring Cars ended up going there in 2014, and it's no longer got an FIA license, so it no longer can host international motorsport, but it does still exist as a drifting venue. And speaking to Stefan Rattel yesterday, his memories of the Golden Port circuit were not particularly fond, and my memories of the circuit from 2014 the same. Would have far more preferred a street circuit around the Bird's Nest, which they eventually did happen, but it was more of a display and demonstration rather than a race itself. And then there was the Race of Champions that was also held inside the stadium, but not a circuit around the outside of it. Mentioned earlier, the other 3 street circuits that were in Beijing. A1GP back in 2000 and we think 6, and then Formula E in 2014. They were both in Beijing. There was also street circuits built in Zhuhai before the Zhuhai circuit was then built. So they did a street circuit beforehand, and then the main circuit was built. The SRO BPR series went there. I was about to say Marcus Winkelhock raced in that. He didn't race in that. That was 1999, but he did race in the 2011 Golden Port race, which is a shame as to why he wasn't. He isn't on the entry list in GT3, but he was not. Looks like we're getting close to progress being. Oh no, I was about to say I thought we'd had that piece already attached, but unfortunately not. So we've got a little bit more waiting to do. What other subjects can we cover? Definitely can't do all racetracks in China, because there are quite a few. Ordos, is that a race? Was that another one that A1GP went to? There's quite a few that exist that, like Pintang, for instance, that are raced by national series but are not raced internationally. I remember World Touring Cars going to to 1 or 2 ones that I'd never heard of before. Zhejiang, I think. But of course, Shanghai, home of the Formula 1 Grand Prix, back on the calendar for GT3 next year, and therefore one would presume on the calendar for GT Cup. The calendar for GT Cup not out yet, so pure speculation. Something I should not do, but as a championship based in China, and with 2 rounds for the GT World Challenge Asia next year in China, both here in Beijing for the curtain closer, and the weekend of the 6th and 7th. So not a Saturday-Sunday race in Shanghai, but it will be a Friday-Saturday race because there is a national holiday. And when talking about the Shanghai 8 Hours, which happened very recently, the big sort of headline endurance race here in China, the Shanghai 8 Hours ended up racing in the middle of the week. Right, we are hearing from race control. So Peter Daly there in the middle of shot. Well, the session is not going to continue because we are going to run out of light. Once they've fixed the barrier, it'll be too dark. So no qualifying session of any substance for SRO GT Cup, and qualifying results and grids will be set some other way, but we do have pre-qualifying, so maybe the results from that. Thanks for joining us, thanks for keeping with us, and we'll see you tomorrow.